Hey folks, welcome back. I hope you're having fun. In the last session, we covered all the six versions and the finger patterns related to them and how they flow into the scales. So I know the progression in this goes kind of like this. You start from nothing, and pretty soon you're all over the fingerboard. And we're just going to do a really quick review of how that went, how the finger patterns work. So we got finger pattern 1, 2, 4, and 3. Okay, and if you do that on, if you start on the D string, and you have finger pattern 1, you get A major. Drop the second finger, start on the third finger, now we have G major. And now we go down, drop the second finger, the first finger. So we have whole tone finger spacing, and we start on the second finger. And then finally we drop the fourth finger, and that gives us E flat major. Now I'm going to do that without showing you my fingers so that I can keep my hand in one spot and show you what it looks like with the balance of the hand. A major. Okay, and then to review, I think maybe I lost a few of you, when we went and we kept replacing the pitch with a different finger. So if I hold my violin like this and I play A major starting here, then it's finger pattern 1. If I put my third finger there, finger pattern 2, there's A major there, finger pattern 4, finger pattern 3. So I'm going to do that again now for you. A major with all 4 patterns. Second position, third position, and fourth position. Quite in tune. Okay, so now what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the Romali, because that was kind of a last minute addition at the end, but it's so important because it's exactly the same thing. So I'm going to share my screen now and just show you that and the handout I gave you last time. Grab these two. Okay, so over here we have this thing I call the Mental Toolbox. And I was pointing out that the finger patterns always come in that order, 1, 2, 4, 3. So how does that shrink your fingerboard? Well, once you learn these and how they change one into another, suddenly you're going to be able to go to any place on the fingerboard, which we're going to do in a minute. But let's work through the Romali. So what I told you to do with the homework was to get a pencil and write in the finger patterns over top of these. And then at the end, I gave them to you as I promised I would. So if we compare them over here, C major, third finger begins with finger pattern 2. And then we go to F major, that moves on to pattern 4. B flat major, you move across the street, you keep the same pattern. E flat major, you drop the fourth finger, pattern 3. A flat major, you go across the street. And this is where some people get in trouble. You drop the third finger to get back to finger pattern 1. So you're going pattern 1. Let me open this up again here. Going down like this. Down, down, down. Then you got to go down again, and that's going to put you over here with D flat major. Okay, so reshare the screen. Okay, and then this really super important thing that I'm talking about, when you get to G flat major and you do the unharmonic, first of all, I want to go through the C flat major that Romali leaves out. Okay, so I said Romali omits C flat major because he wants to make the unharmonic relationship between G flat major and F sharp major. So he's finished with D flat major. and then G flat major. Now our second finger drops again, and now you could say that we're in half position, but reading wise, we're still in first position. And something I didn't mention in the paper there is you could go and play F sharp major the same way, starting on a third finger. And now you shift back. Where are you going? Are you going to second position? Or you go to first position? What is it? Depends what you call it. If I call it F sharp, I'm in second. If I call it, what did I say? If I call it G flat, I'm in second. If I call it F sharp, I'm in first. But we're down here in if we call this G flat major, my brain says I'm in first position. If I call it F sharp major, I call it half position. Okay, so, and then if I call this F sharp major with a second finger, I say I'm in first. But if I call it G flat major, I'm in second. So I can't emphasize this point enough. Cannot emphasize this point enough. It's psychological. It's a psychological problem. It's a reading problem. And the minute we start thinking about the notes and going down or going up and fishing, then we lose our hand balance and we lose everything. We lose all of our security. You should be able to take your violin, put a finger down and slap it. Second finger. I don't care if it's F sharp, G flat, what it is. Right? Could be F sharp or G flat in first position or half position. Doesn't matter. It's just a place on your fingerboard. Doesn't matter. There's a nut there that stops you. All right. And if I go here, is it first position or second position? Doesn't matter. And that is so important psychologically. If you can get that in your calm psyche, that you just say it doesn't matter. I just play the notes. And that brings me to a story I wanted to tell you, which is going to kind of lead into the next section, which is when I was young, 17, I was starting lessons and I was so enthusiastic and I said, I want to start a string quartet. So, in the first couple of weeks of youth orchestra, I went to some of the people I'd met there and I said, let's start a string quartet. We can play Haydn and Beethoven and stuff. And so I got these people to come, and they were really fine players. They were been playing since they were young. Beg your pardon. And so there was this one guy named Dan. And I said, Dan, do you know how you play in fifth position much? Because we were talking about who's going to play first and who's going to play second, because I'd only played a year in a bit, right? And he looked at me and he goes, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, like you play down here in first position and you play up here in third and fifth. He kind of slowly looking at me. He was a phenomenal player. He studied with our concertmaster of the Edmonton Symphony, James Keane, who was a Curtis graduate, phenomenal player. And Dan looked at me and he said, I know all of the notes. And it took years for that to sink in. And I'll show you what he meant. I'll show you exactly what he meant. He didn't care what, he could, like we were doing, he could put a fourth finger on A and play a scale, or a third, or second, or first. And then maybe he would, shift keys and go back this way or that way. He could play anything. He knew all the notes. And so he didn't really think about positions. And it took quite a few years for that to really gel with me, what he meant by that. I didn't dismiss it like he was, not thinking or something like that. He really meant, I know where all the notes are. So, I'm going to go to another slide here, and we're going to take a detour away from Romali, and then we'll come back and finish Romali. But I'm going to share my screen here and show you my whiteboard. So we'll talk a little bit about fingerboard navigation. Okay, so there is everything you need to know about music theory. And I'm actually hardly joking. I taught music theory at university and college, and I can teach people that are failing out of music theory in 6 weeks, everything they need to know to pass, entrance exams to major universities. So it's very simple. So I taught remedial theory, and then I taught first year college theory. So if you know this, you kind of know everything. And you'll see later on, we don't have time in this course to cover all of the implications of this, but I use all of this mental work together to navigate my way around the fingerboard. But as I tell my theory class at the beginning, all you have to know is that B and C and E and F are close, and everything else is a step apart. And then you're on your way. Okay, so you don't even need that slide. You know that already. Everybody knows that B and C and E and F are close. Okay, so how do you navigate your fingerboard so that you can get around and you know where you are? Quickly and confidently. Okay, what's the first note that everybody learns? Everybody learns, the little children learn to play this A because it matches here. So we learn our third fingers. So that's it. And then of course you know where C is. So there's a kingpin note. You know your open string and you know those third fingers. There's only two notes in between there and there. Okay? So if you know your alphabet, you can figure out where they are. If it's A, then G's a whole step behind, and F's a whole step behind. As you probably know, beginners make a mistake with F and F sharp. They can't sort that out, or you tell them these are natural notes and they try to play B here. Well, if you just remember B and C and E and F are close, then you're over that. And when you get up higher, it's the same thing. You may know that down here, but when you get up high, maybe you're losing your bearings for the same reason that you're reading down here and you're secure and you're relying on reading up here, but you're not relying on what we know, what I just taught you down there. Okay, so it seems like a small point, but it's a very big point. So what's the next note after your third finger? Well, then you learn your fourth finger, which matches the open string above it. Okay, so then now we have, and of course the B in front of that. Now we have two kingpin notes. We know the notes behind, all right? And now the third thing that you should learn is your harmonic up here, which is your half string. And a good deal of you probably already know this already. Well, if you consider where you are here, you put your first finger there and then your harmonic. There's only two notes in between those. This one's B, so this is C, D, E. Finger pattern 2, and you can identify it. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, D, E, F, G. So you got two finger pattern 1s, two finger pattern 2, and that way we go. Once you get up the string, then it all starts over, right? So now I can put if I know where those are, if I know where this note is, if I know where the fourth finger is, well, I should know where a theoretical fifth finger would be there. And as I didn't actually take the time in the last time to go through that little drawing I made, but the body joins your violin about a major sixth above the body. So right there, that's where the body is. So there's a kingpin note. You've got your third finger, your fourth finger where the neck turns, theoretical fifth finger there, and then the note in front of that, which we all know, should know, F, C, G, D, and then your half strings, G, D, A, E. Well, now suddenly you know all of the notes, okay? So here's a little exercise for you. Take A, B, C, D, E, F, G, write them on little pieces of paper, put them in a bucket, and then pull one out and say, okay, I'm on the G string. Well, I pulled out a C, okay? Here it is. Play it with that finger, this finger, or even a fourth. Should be able to do that too and be able to do that as if this finger's missing and you're down here. All right, do that all over the violin on all of the strings. We're not going to spend a lot of time doing that right now. But that's an important exercise. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Let's go back to Romali. And we are going to just make sure that everybody's comfortable. Oopsie, select both of those. Make sure that everybody's absolutely comfortable with this progression. And if you are, you want to skip ahead, that's fine. But I want to make sure everybody's comfortable. So I'm going to go through this sequence of scales. So you got C major, finger pattern 2, drop the first finger, F major. Now we're pattern 4. Drop, or no, go across the street to the left. I was saying there to drop because if we go to the upper octave, then it does move on to pattern 3. It never changes. There's no way, try to go through this and find me wrong, you won't. It's just because if it's fourths or fifths and the violin's tuned that way, the patterns are immovable. Okay, so B flat major, pattern 2. Drop the fourth finger, and now we get E flat major. Over across the street to the left, A flat major, same pattern 3. Drop the third finger to regain finger pattern 1. Okay, and now we drop the second finger to get pattern 2 again. Okay, rename that F sharp. Now put a second finger on it. And now we're 2-fingered pattern 4. And now I'm going to go down here, go across the street to the left. Drop the 4th finger, E major. Go across the street. Drop the 3rd finger. And back to finger pattern 1. And we could have a big long lesson on the minor scales. They're no different. They're more complex because you're usually using 3-finger patterns. But they follow exactly, if you're smart and you take some time and analyze those the way they work, then you'll see exactly how that works. Okay, so let's go through these little things that I mentioned here about if you have trouble with D flat major and you're just not getting your hand balance and you're frustrated, then just slow down and start with D major. You might even want to play the warm-up like that all the way through, and then put your 4th finger down and then back it up. I remember asking Norman Nelson that very question one day. I said, how do you get D flat major in tune? And there was a long pause and he says, I don't know. And he was sincere. I think what he meant was that he had no trouble. He couldn't fathom that anybody didn't have perfect pitch and would let a musical genius like he was. But I really wanted to know how to tune it because there's so little to hang on to. D flat doesn't ring much, E flat doesn't ring much, F doesn't ring much, G flat doesn't, A flat, B flat, C not much. There's not much to hang on to. But over the years, I've come to associate keys with colors and tastes, as Sidney Humphreys taught me. And this really is a rich, very it's a very rich key, like chocolate. Sidney liked to say that in C major, you, how does he say? He'd say that it's bland porridge. And as you go through the sharp keys, you add salt. And as you go through the flat keys, you add sugar. So these would be salty, 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 salty. So when you get here, this would be kind of like, this would be really dark chocolate, salty chocolate. And this might be, I don't know, maybe potato chips or something. I had a phenomenal young student one time who had had chromesthesia, and he could see colors for all of the keys and the notes. It's fascinating. It used to be regarded as a disorder, but it's not a disorder. It's a supreme gift, unbelievable gift. All right, so you can do the same thing with G major and C flat major. If you're having a hard time, I'll just read this. Play G major with open strings, slap it down, let it ring, play it in closed position, and then back it up. No fishing allowed. Let me do that for you so you can see me do it. Make sure it rings. If you want to do, to hear all the intervals. So open strings. No. And back it up. And of course we can go the other direction. Okay, so that's what that's all about. All right, now we are going to go into this issue of drawing notes out of the bucket, and then what do you do with it? So you could have a bucket of notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you could have a little basket of version numbers, which I keep in Roman numerals. You probably notice now that I keep the version numbers in Roman numerals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I do the finger patterns in Arabic numerals. You could use a dice for that one. Throw a dice, 1 to 6. So you say a note, okay, draw a note, let's say C, whatever, okay, C, and you're drawing these out, version 5, and C, and we're going to do it on the A string. So here we go, here we go. Oh, I didn't say the finger pattern. finger pattern 3. So you got to do this one. Okay, so you can do that all over the violin, or you can just do it a simpler way. You can say, okay, I'm going to play positions, finger patterns 1, 2, 3, 4 in first position and move the fingers around. And then I'm going to do the same thing in third position. That's what I do with very young players. Get them comfortable in first and third, and they know this perfect fourth above the nut. So you know where those are, you know where this is, and then you can start moving around. That's kind of the traditional old way. But don't neglect the other ones. I could have just as easily said when I picked C out of the bucket that, okay, I want to do it on the D string. So can you figure out where that would be really fast? With a first finger? Boom! How do I know? Well, I know that the half string is D, so I go down a step. It's very near the bottom body. Remember, we knew these. Practice doing this there. I have an excuse because I play the viola. That's my excuse today. Okay, so I could do, let's say, finger pattern 2 now, and version 6. I'm being honest. I'm being honest here. If I slowed down mentally and took a little bit more time, I would not have a problem with that. But when I'm teaching and thinking and my wheels are turning, that kind of thing happens. But take your time, and you can pick a bowing too. Moving along, fingerboard navigation we've got. Okay, now, 2 important things. We haven't talked about arpeggios. And the arpeggio, I made a video about this, but we're going to go through it really quickly anyway, because it's important that you see these patterns and understand them. Very easy and straightforward. But again, I can't overestimate the importance of knowing how they flow. Okay, so you've got your 4 fingers. Now an arpeggio, a major or minor augmented arpeggio, is basically a scale with skips in it. Right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And we go do, mi, so, do. So you skip a note, skip 2 notes. So if you're starting on a 1, you skip the 2 and you go to 3, skip the 4 and you're back to 1. So you get 1, 3, 1. You're going to see how this works. If you start on an odd finger, you'll go to an odd and come back. Okay, and then after you're back to the 1, you skip 2 notes and you're to a 4. Now you can think of 2 notes going that way, but it's easier to think of going 1 finger back. You'll see that. We'll write these down in a minute. If you start on a 2, skip 3, go to 4. Skip 1, you're back to 2, 2, 4, 2. You see that? Skip 2 notes, and we're back to 1. 2, 4, 2, 1. That's what I mean, go back 1 instead of forward 2. Start on a 3, you skip 4, you're at 1. So we got 3, 1. Go back to 3, 3, 1, 3. And then we skip 2, boom, boom, 2. 3, 1, 3, 2. You're on a 4, you skip 1, you're at 2. Skip 3, you're back at 4. 4, 2, 4. Skip 2 notes, you're at 3. So the way it's going to work, you're either going to have an even numbered pair of notes and then go back, or you're going to have an odd numbered pair of notes and you're going to go back 1. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw them in reverse order, starting on a 4. So watch how easy this is. 4, 2, 4, go back a finger. 3, 1, 3, go back a finger. 2, 4, 2, go back a finger. And 1, 3, 1, and go back a finger. Okay, and again, you'll know this intuitively, but sometimes people get in a certain position, they're doing a certain inversion or whatever, and they get lost. Okay, now the beauty of this The beauty of this is that it goes exactly with our finger patterns. This is finger pattern 1, this is finger pattern 2, finger pattern 4, and finger pattern 3. Isn't that neat? So convenient. So now you can go all over your violin and play the arpeggios. And arpeggios are, you could say arpeggios are scales. I'll leave this up here for you to look at while I play them. Arpeggios are just scales with skips in them, but arpeggios are also all of our chord structures and harmony. So that's why I love this thing so much. This is not really working so well. All right, so I'm gonna play. So here's finger pattern 1. So that, again, this is the first one that kids learn, but they learn it with an open string. Finger pattern 1. Well, if you close it up, you get 4, 2, 4, 3. Okay, now we open up the finger pattern 2. 3, 1, 3, 2. And what I love to do with that one. Okay, so you can move it all over the fingerboard like that. Now, what do you notice about that one? It's super cool. So if you move it up here, it's the same as this. D major, look at that. Like that. Same shape. We'll start seeing these shapes on the fingerboard like that. If you're a mandolin player or something, maybe you know this already, and all kinds of other really neat stuff, shortcuts and that. All right, so we did finger pattern 1 for A major, finger pattern 2 for D major, G major, excuse me. And now we open up like this, and 2, 4, 2, 1. So this is the one where we get our mediant across here. This is the one, all of the other finger patterns have the mediant and the upper tonic as neighbors. And if you think about it, it's right there. A, F, but we play it over here. But if I were to play this in second position, then you see the mediant up there. Hope I haven't lost you with that. 2, 4, 2, 1. 1, 3, 1, 4. There's the mediant here. Mediant's back. So we could do that in reverse order, but I don't want to overload your brain. And then what we do, we're here. Now we lower this and we'll play the E flat arpeggio. Finger pattern 3. So we'll do that now without a lot of messing around. Here we go. Finger pattern 1, 2, 4, and 3. Okay, so we know them there, and then you can move them around. So one of the very first things I do is I have people play a cycle of fifths scale with arpeggio all the way across. And I'll include that in your PDF so that you can try that too. But we'd better get on with it here, or we're going to be here an awfully long time. Okay, so you can start exploring that. Go up to a certain position and do a warm up, and then try to play scales up there. See what you learn. Go here, go here, go here, and play a scale on a 4, scale on a 3, scale on a 2, scale on a 1. And at first you might get lost because when you do it that way, the hand, if you think about it, winds up with the tritone spacing. So we're so used to the octave hand frame, you do a scale here, and a scale here, and a scale here, and a scale there, then you're doing what we did earlier in the lesson where you're opening the hand frame backwards and going into new keys. And at first it can disorient you. But if you work at it, it'll just so open up your playing so much. All right, so now what we have to get on to the chromatic finger patterns. Okay, so I will give you the PDF for that and you can refer to it. But here's the basis of it. You learn the chromatic stuff in relation to the diatonic scale. The biggest problem with chromatic scales is people don't hear them in relation to anything except the half steps, or they're reading them on the page and they go, this one's, that's next, 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 next. They try to do it that way. No, I think that's a mistake. I have actually a humorous little exercise that I do with my students called the 12-step program for chromatic scale playing. It's kind of a pun on the 12-step program. There's 12 steps in it, and basically what it involves is you go through a major scale, and then you fill in one hole at a time. Fill in the first hole, then you fill in the second hole, fill in the third, fill in the fourth, and I forgot what I was doing, and then fill in the fifth. And that way you're always listening to the major scale. Maybe I'll include a PDF with that. There's 12 steps because you always play the major scale, and then you fill in the note. You play the major scale, fill in the next major scale, fill in, major scale, fill in, major scale, fill in, so that you're always coming back to this. Do that really quickly. Don't double the top note. Oh yeah, you do double it. Fill in the first hole. Major scale. So when you go up, you add in the chromatic note. You don't double the top note so that you have the right number of notes within the meter. Okay, so enough of that. So this is similar when we do the chromatic patterns. What we do is we take this major hand frame, if we're including the open string in it, that's the major. I don't know if that's dawned on you yet. If you move it up here and use finger pattern 1, it sounds minor, because we're only involving 4 notes instead of 5 notes. So that's kind of a revelation at first. When you start thinking about it, you go, oh yeah, it sounds different. It is, okay. But when we're down here, we have the major sound. So what we do is the way it goes, you go on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. There's the first time I've asked you to move that third finger on its own. On, off, on, off. But when you start it, the hand's going to be very open and free. So here's line A of chromatic A. Notice that I did not go in chromatic order. On the way down, I go in relation to the hand frame. So the first and second fingers go down, and the third and fourth fingers go up. And on the way down, it's off, on, off, on. So now I'm going to do that slowly. On, off, 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 on, off. Finger remains down. Off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on. Be careful here. Now you play C natural. Off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on. Line B. Now we only have one finger that's going to go down, and then the other 2 go up. So the first finger doesn't move now. Blocks in. On, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. If you have difficulty with this one, examine this area in here of your hand. It's not about this, it's about this. If you're building the hand up from the bottom and you're squeezing, you're going to have trouble. You have to stay open in here. Yaroslav used to stuff corks in my fingers in here to get me to loosen up. Now we have 2 fingers down. You can release the weight on the lower finger. On, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. Now we balance on the third finger. On, off, on, off, off, on, off. Okay, now I'm going to do something fun. I'm going to play that with version 2 to show you how this it explodes. It goes crazy. sorry. And of course, you can play it slower. You can play it with different bowings and all kinds of fun stuff. We're not going to explore that up here in this course here because there's too many implications of what goes on there and what to listen for and change. But if you can get it down here and you're already, you know, an advanced player, maybe a professional, you'll figure that out on your own. But feel free to reach out to me if you want more help with that. Okay, that's called chromatic A, where the upper finger is moving. I developed a chromatic B, where the lower finger moves, and this is really kind of fun. And because I invented it, there was nobody to help me with it, of course, and it threw my brain for a loop at first because it just felt really weird because the upper finger doesn't move, and I keep going doing all these finger patterns. It's like I said in the beginning of the course, we do so many things certain ways in our playing, and we avoid other things because we find an easier way to do it or whatever. But this forces you to do all of the finger combinations, and so there are certain sequences in finger combinations that are rare, except in this exercise. But then when you encounter them in the literature, they're right there. You go, oh yeah, I know where that is. I know what that's from. Okay, so you cannot move an open string down unless you do scordatura. So we only go from line B. So you go, it's the same thing. Ascending is on and off, and descending is off and on. So you start with finger pattern 1, and this first finger is going to go down like this. And then the second finger will go down, and then the third finger will go up. But the upper finger of the combination will not move. So I want to touch on one last thing. I have an expression in my music studio. I talked a lot about it. We haven't done much of it in the course because there's so much to cover. But my saying is, the bow is the boss. Okay? Make sure that you figure out what you're going to do with the bow. Maybe get the metronome out and make the bow the boss. If you're going to be using the whole bow, use the whole bow and make the fingers follow that. Don't fall into the trap of trying to make the bow follow the fingers. This is first. And you've probably heard this expression from lots of different teachers and players. Make sure that you have this image that when you play the bow, you're painting. It's like you're painting the sound out. I've heard that, I think it was maybe Dorothy DeLay, and there's a Canadian pedagogue here and adjudicator, Metro Kozak, who used to say that all the time. Okay, paint the sound. So we live in a digital world. The clocks go tick, 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 and your screen goes like this, right? And we don't think about, everybody kind of plays that way too. If you play piano, there's my pianist students do a lot of this. They think that way instead of... Your bow can go around like it's turning a circle on a racetrack. It doesn't go this way and then that way. It never stops. It's going around like that, like thick paint going on the wall. It's going around, beautiful sound, and then you can really experiment with your sound. Of course, there's so much to do in violin playing. So I would like to leave it at that for today. I know the chromatic patterns can be a little bit confusing, but we'll come back to them next time, and we will do them slowly and just review them. But have a look at the music. Try not to play from the music. Try to play from your brain. On, off, on, off. And when you say on, I know it can be confusing because when you do chromatic, when you're ascending, the on comes after. Your fingers on, both fingers on. And the upper one's off, but I say off on the beat. On, off. When you're coming down, on or off, on. It happens right away. That's why that can be confusing. But if you look at the text, the tablature text, rather than looking at the notes, it's easier. And then when you're trying to do version 5 and version 6 and you're on and off and you're switching strings and you've got E sharps and F naturals and you don't know if it's an open string or where it is, it's the physical that will give you the accuracy, not trying to read the notes. There, I said it again. Okay, can't say it too much. Okay, go play your favorite piece of music. Go explore your fingerboards. Take some notes out of a bag, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, see if you can find them. Say, okay, version 5 up here on this note. This such and such a bowing here. Okay, let's play a scale starting on a 4th finger. Bang, there. Can you do that? Scale starting on a 3rd finger. Bang, right here. And it's going to change the way you play the violin. I really believe it because it did for me. Even after, I'm not exaggerating. You know, people think I exaggerate. I'm not. 25 years I improved after that. And okay, we're going to leave it at that, or I'll talk all day. So we'll see you in the next one, and we're going to review 5 and 6 with chromatic, and then we'll wrap up with a few other things. And please feel free to reach out if you have questions. Okay? Thank you, and see you next time.